The party was coming to an end. There were only a few of us left. The owner told us about a ghost in that house that she hadn't seen in years, and everyone's reaction was the same: terror, because it was very clear that many of us, without knowing it, had seen it that night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of this October of Stories, in which, as you already know, we've tried to gather the most macabre and terrifying stories that have come to us. That's why we ask you to be very respectful with the stories we're going to tell tonight. You never know when you'll be the next protagonist, and you'll have to take note of how other people have survived an encounter with something similar. So this is your last chance to look for other content. From this point on, there's no turning back. In 10 seconds, we'll begin this episode of Night Stories. Subscribe. Hello, community. My name is Nadia, and I feel like I just experienced a glitch in reality, or at least that's what I think. I'm completely stunned, but I want you to judge, to help me think, what did I just experience? I live on a small ranch where there are only 4 houses. Of course, all the neighbors know each other and we get along well. We're in the middle of the countryside. So it didn't surprise me that when I was coming back from the pharmacy in the nearest town, I ran into a cargo truck carrying grain right in front of my vehicle. I cursed my luck because those agricultural trucks, being so heavy, move very slowly, at most 30 kilometers per hour, and there's no chance to overtake them because of the curves. I was going to have to drive behind it the whole way, so the trip was going to be long, and my baby was already desperate to get home and sleep. I had no choice but to be patient, drive slowly, and wait. Suddenly, I saw another car behind me, and I recognized it immediately. Since we were going so slowly, I had a chance to turn around and see clearly. It was my neighbor's car, an elderly couple. The man was driving, and the woman was by his side, as always. And well, there was nothing we could do. We were going together. That meant it would take us longer than usual to get to our homes. Then we finally reached the turnoff onto the dirt road that takes us to our ranch. I carefully turned onto it, and to my surprise, I saw in the rearview mirror that my neighbors kept going straight. I didn't understand what they could be looking for over there toward the mountain, but well, they must have had some business. But here's where it gets strange, folks. Because when I arrived and parked my car right in front of my house, that white Colo vehicle was parked there. And through the window, I could see my neighbors, the elderly couple, having dinner peacefully in their kitchen. But I wasn't mistaken. I didn't see them wrong. I had just seen them on the road, that car with its battle scars, with its old paint, and my neighbors, both of them, very clearly. I know it might not seem like a big deal, but I know I wasn't wrong, and I can't explain what it was that I saw. My name is Arturo Veleda. This happened a few years ago on the Guatemala-El Salvador border. I was already separated from my daughter's mother when my daughter was 18 months old. I lived in the capital and they lived at the border, in a village a few kilometers past Jalpatagua, Jutiapa, between the Paz River and the Pulula River. The community is called Las Pilas Comapa. To be exact, this was on a Tuesday, right on Children's Day, and I was working as a security manager at a shopping mall in the capital. That day I got paid, plus 2 bonuses they gave me for basically keeping everything in order and meeting the goals. I had planned to go see my daughter on Saturday so I could be back home early Monday morning and get to work on time. So when I left for my break that Tuesday, I stopped by a boutique to buy her a stuffed toy over a meter tall, shoes, clothes, and lots of other little things. Later, I arrived at my parents' house where she lives, greeted my mom, and showed her everything I had bought. I told her about my plan to go see my daughter on Saturday. I was doing that when the neighbor's young daughters, age 5 and 3, arrived. Their parents had limited resources. When I saw those joyful little eyes looking at the toys I had bought, I thought, what if my daughter is watching someone else receive toys right now? What if she's looking longingly at acts of affection with those same little eyes? That's when I said, no, that's nonsense. I'll wait until Saturday. Right then at 9:30 in the morning, I told my mom to make me something to eat so it would be ready when I got out of the shower. I had to go. 20 minutes later, I was already starting the car to go see my daughter, but unfortunately for me, it clearly wouldn't start. Right then, that wasn't going to stop me, so I took the bus that would take me to the El Salvador highway to wait for another one to Jutiapa. Look, I think that the more in a hurry you are, the more obstacles get in your way. After not finding any buses and having to hitchhike, carrying bags full of stuff, around 10 at night, I was just getting to the wash basins, hanging off a beat-up little bus. But finally, I made it and went to the gift exchange and played for a little while with my daughter. It was midnight when things started to get tough for me. First, my phone was out of battery because my baby's grandmother doesn't like me and didn't let me charge it. Second, I had to be at work at 7 in the morning the next day, so I couldn't stay over. Also, there was nowhere to stay. I said, well, there's no other way. I'll just have to walk. So I started my journey to get to the route where the first bus passed by at 3 in the morning. A small store was open on the village outskirts. I bought a flashlight, almost like a toy, for 3 quetzals to light my way, because there isn't even a single streetlight there. I walked and walked and walked. That's when I started to feel the strange atmosphere. Besides, it was pouring rain, and with every thunderclap I saw shadows standing by the side of the road. I imagined them with red eyes, like embers. But honestly, I was already really nervous, and I thought I was imagining things, but I couldn't stop or turn back. My uncertainty eased a little when I saw 2 light poles in the distance. That meant I was arriving at a place called Tempisque Cacherillo. Before reaching the Palula River, I was already halfway there, but in the distance, at the foot of one of the poles, there was a big rock. It had always been there, I already knew it, but what hadn't been there before was the woman and the boy, about 4 years old, who were sitting on it. At first, I tried to convince myself that it was nothing strange, that maybe they were waiting for someone, but I started to lose that hope when I thought about it. What woman would be out at that hour, in the rain, with her child, in the middle of the night? And maybe a strong smell of decomposition also played a part, which grew stronger with every step I took. I got to about 3 meters away. I didn't look at her straight on like a man, even though I wanted to, but I didn't have the guts to do it. I only glanced at her out of the corner of my eye. Both of them were pale, with wrinkled, swollen skin, like when someone spends too much time in the water. That's how they looked at each other. They were crouched down, and you could see it. You could see the veins in their necks swollen, even though they had an opening from one side to the other. I swear to you, something was coming out of there. It wasn't blood. It was a thick black liquid, like melted tar. I've never been that religious, but at that moment I remembered all the prayers from catechism. And really, God, what would you have done? I prayed and prayed not to stop seeing, but so that strength would return to my body. Because I couldn't even move it anymore, because it was getting harder and harder for me to move forward. With every step, I felt it getting heavier and heavier until I realized that the child's 2 legs were hanging over my shoulders. It was heavier than a sack of cement, I swear. I couldn't move anymore, and the woman was walking beside me and started to cry, but in a horrible way, screaming and making gargling noises, as if her throat had been cut and she was breathing through it with liquid gushing out, not letting her cry out loudly. That's when I really felt like I was leaving. I felt afraid, very much so, and I simply accepted whatever was about to happen to me. I gave in to the weight, not just on my back, but on my soul. I fell to my knees completely. I remember I said to myself, well, Father, if this is my time, then it's just my time. Please take care of my daughter and please let them find my body so my mom doesn't suffer so much. And when I said that, the damn woman next to me started laughing. She started cackling. She got there on her knees with her eyes and heart squeezed tight. I felt an air I had never felt before in my life, warm, light, like a breeze you feel at the harbor, but I didn't open my eyes. I just kept praying a prayer to St. Michael the Archangel, the one I know, and I kept going like that for about 10 minutes until I felt my strength coming back. A very deep peace, which I have no idea how to explain. Do you remember I told you I was before reaching the Palula River, that I was halfway there? Well, when I opened my eyes, I wasn't there anymore. I was kneeling, but right where my voice was coming from, I was at the entrance to the village of Coco. Years have passed, and still, whenever I remember, I start sweating all over again. I never knew what the hell I saw, or how I got from that place before the river to the station I was heading to. I can't blame it on booze or drugs because those are vices I don't have. And even though I don't know how, I do know what and who saved me that night. The life, me, an experience I want to share with you. It's something that happened with my best friend Jennifer in 2021. At that time, I was still living in my home country, El Salvador. I remembered that story because of the video of the creepy woman in the tree, and I'll explain why. You see, with my best friend, we had the habit of staying outside our houses until the early hours of the morning, especially on weekends when we were off work. This was on a Friday night. We were, as usual, talking, laughing, and eating some snacks and soda, when at around 3 a.m, we heard a voice. I swear that when I heard the noise you mentioned in the story about the woman in the tree, I remembered immediately that deep voice we heard that time. It was a deep voice, identical to the one in the video, a voice that came from the ground and said, My friend and I looked at each other, trying to figure out where that voice could have come from, because it seemed to come from about 10 meters above where we were, but with an extremely strange resonance, as if it were coming from below, from the ground. My friend is very scared of those things, and I told her to calm down, that maybe it was just a neighbor trying to play a prank on us. Because of the time we were outside, I walked toward where we heard the voice, but everything was silent. There was no one around, not a single light on in the nearby houses. Even so, I still thought that maybe it was just someone playing a prank. I went back to where my friend was, and when I got to her, the same voice was heard again. This time it said, and the same growl that you put in the video, that same sound was heard. My friend was pale with fear, but I managed to calm her down. What we didn't know was that probably that voice was warning us about what was coming. And the thing is, we were out there about half an hour later when we looked up. I swear I saw a group of three, maybe four figures go by. The scariest part wasn't seeing people walking at 3:30 in the morning, but that they seemed to be floating. They were figures that didn't have feet. You could only see them from the torso up, from the waist down. They had nothing. I told my friend to turn around and look, and when she did, she got so scared that we ran into her house and waited there until she calmed down. No. In the direction those figures were going, where they were floating, there was a ravine. And a few minutes after they disappeared, we started hearing sounds like pigs being slaughtered. A horrifying sound. A scream so loud and gut-wrenching that even now, 4 years after it happened, it's still engraved in my mind. The noise was horrible. My friend got really shaken up from the fright. The strange thing about it was that no one else seemed to hear it. No one came out of their houses, no lights turned on. It was like the whole neighborhood was sleeping deeply, as if nothing was happening. Only a couple of dogs started barking after the screams, and then total silence. The following night, we had the idea to stay up again until dawn, but something strange made us change our minds. She started crying around midnight, so we decided to stay inside my friend's house. But when we went out to the terrace, we saw that on the hill in front of our neighborhood, San Jacinto Hill, there was a ball of fire sitting on a high area. From there, the strange thing was that, despite the rain, that fire didn't go out. On the contrary. It seemed that at times it grew, and then it would return to its original size. Because of what happened the night before, I told my friend that it would be better for me to go home. We couldn't risk it with something we didn't understand, with something we knew nothing about, really. We kept watching that ball of fire for almost 30 minutes, and even though the rain was very heavy, it never went out. I went home, and my grandfather and friend later said that ball of fire stayed visible until early morning. That was the most intense experience we lived through together, the most intense thing I went through alone. I'll tell you about it in another email, and I think it's the hardest thing I've ever had to face. I send you my regards, Uriel, and if you ever publish this, I also send my regards to the whole community. A big hug from Barcelona. If you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, I don't understand why. You don't want to be part of the best community on the internet, the Relatos de la Noche community, but this is your chance. Subscribe. Don't miss any new episodes. We're going to leave a link in the description so you can buy my book, Relatos de la Noche. It's already completely sold out in many places, but we know there are bookstores that still have it, especially online. Check it out. But there's some really good news, and that's that it's now available in Spain. It's a new edition, 100% Spanish printed there, with a special cover for that country. And also, there are some terms that we adapted so that it would be completely understandable for anyone who isn't familiar with our regionalisms, who doesn't know these words that we sometimes use. We Mexicans are very happy, so if you're listening to us from there, you can now find the book on Amazon Spain and in any bookstore. We would love finally to receive a story from someone with this new edition, which hasn't happened yet, so we'll wait. Who will be the first person to show it off to us? We hope you enjoy it. It's a small piece of Mexican horror literature, very honest. This one, I promise you, is made with a lot of love. Goodbye. And now, let's continue with one more story tonight. My name is Katia, and this happened 3 years ago at a Halloween party I was invited to by some friends from college. Well, actually, they weren't my friends. They were friends of the guy I liked. I was in my final year of high school and rarely went out. But when he told me to come, that it was going to be a chill party, I agreed. The party. It was in an old, huge house in an old part of Puebla. One of those houses with high ceilings, thick walls, and wooden floors that creak with every step. I really liked hearing my footsteps in houses like that, and also how they smell, how time feels in them. When I arrived, many people were already there. The house was decorated with orange lights and paper skulls, and music was playing everywhere. There was a bar with drinks and a lot of people in costumes, most of them dressed as movie characters or things like that. It was the first Halloween party I went to that felt like a movie party. I was dressed as a witch, but nothing out of this world. I wasn't a slutty witch, just a regular witch. And among all those people in the middle of the noise, that's when I saw something that caught my attention. A boy in the middle of the party, sitting on the last step of the spiral staircase that led to the second floor, was wearing a red costume with a plastic devil mask. He was still with his hands on his knees, sitting up very straight, and no one was talking to him. And since the downstairs bathroom was occupied, I went up the stairs to ask him if there was another one upstairs, assuming he lived there. "You can't go upstairs. This isn't your house," he answered me very slowly. I had to get closer to hear him because the music downstairs was loud. The boy lifted his head a little and stared at me without saying anything else. I could feel his deep gaze beneath the mask. I don't know why, but it gave me a very strange feeling. I didn't want to cause any trouble, and I felt like he had something. I'm not sure how to say this without sounding offensive, but it was clear he wasn't an ordinary boy. He made me feel like talking to him was a mistake without knowing what was wrong or how to fix it. I walked away and used the downstairs bathroom since I didn't dare go upstairs. Time went by, the party went on, but little by little people started leaving. It was almost 3 in the morning and there were only about 7 of us left. The owner of the house, her boyfriend, the guy I liked, and a few more friends. We sat in the living room, and when we were planning a game to contact the dead, someone said to the owner, laughing, "Hey, but first let the guard go to sleep, right?" She laughed too for a moment, but then asked, "What did your brother mean?" I told her, "He was on guard duty today." The girl became serious and replied, "My brother isn't here. He went on a trip with his girlfriend and her family." There was a silence and someone asked her, "How old is your brother?" 25, she replied. Then, the one who had made the first comment asked again, "Hey, but then, who is the boy sitting on the stairs, the one who wouldn't let us go up?" We all turned toward that spot. I think we had all tried to go up at some point with the same result, but the staircase was empty. Only the dim light of a candle illuminated the steps. We all went back together to let someone know just in case nobody wanted to split up. We climbed the first few steps, and as soon as we did, a horrible smell hit us, like dampness and rotten meat. The owner covered her nose with the sleeve of her sweater and said it was coming from upstairs, but that there was no one in the house. Someone joked that it was the ghost child, and she very seriously replied, No child appears here." She fell silent for a moment and then continued, "When I was a child, I did see something, but it wasn't a child. It was a man with horns. He would stand on the stairs and tell me not to go up, that this wasn't my house. But I haven't seen him since I was 9 years old." No one said anything else. We stayed there listening to the house creak in the wind as if something was moving upstairs. For a moment, I was sure they were going to start laughing, that they were playing a joke on me, but that wasn't the case. And without saying it, we all thought the same thing. That boy with the devil mask was never really a boy. That without knowing it, that night we all had contact with a ghost or with something worse. Community, as you know, in the last episode, we told you that you could win an autographed book of night stories. And the response has been so good that we're going to double the prize and we'll be announcing the winners in the coming days. Tomorrow we'll start with the Facebook group winners, but we're going to give you a few more days so you can participate, both on Instagram and TikTok, where you already know you can find us as RDL and Official. Only like that, any other account is fake. So go and comment. It's very important that you leave a comment to be able to enter the giveaway and say, I want a book. We will be giving away 10 on each social network, so go and follow us, please, if you haven't done it yet, so you can get a book. And also, to stay in touch with you, because we love to interact, especially through Instagram stories where you show us how you listen to Relatos de la Noche. That really means a lot to us. And, well, also here, if you've made it this far, it's very likely that there will be comments like last time. But we're going to give away 5 more books and we'll announce the winners on Thursday, both from the last episode and this one. So to participate, in your comment, you have to say October of Stories. It doesn't matter the context. It doesn't matter what you say. Just add October of Stories, and you're already participating. Thank you for being part of this wonderful community, and thank you for continuing to share all your stories with us, because you are really fueling this October of Stories. Probably the scariest one in all of history. And if you don't believe me yet, you'll see. You'll see. With what's left of the month, get some rest, don't have nightmares. We'll talk to you again very soon.